This video is sponsored by I Build It Terrain. More on them later. It's tabletop time. I'm Murray, and today I'm going to be continuing my Tyranid horror. Now, it all started with this little guy, my little dabble for my theme and scheme for my Tyranid army, and you all loved it. It was fantastic to see. So we're going to go with something a bit more army legal, as this is really just a diorama. I love it, but it's time to build something a little bigger.
Now, to start off, I am very happy to announce that after reading all the comments, I have decided to name this Hive Fleet Jötunn. I love the name. I think it really fits the rest of the other Hive Fleet titles. Now, as I perform a very loose sketch, I have two really clear ideas for two of the warriors. I want one of their heads to be melded against like his big venom cannon. I think that would be really cool. Like he's sort of grown up against it rather than it just being completely separate to him. Also, I want to expand upon the open mouths that I did with the Hormagaunts earlier. I want to see how far I can push that. This example, perhaps a little bit too far. I don't think his chin needs to go down to his navel. It's a little bit far, but I think you get the idea. Now, the last one, I honestly don't have a strong idea for him. All I know is that I think I want someone with lots of swords. But I'll start with the others, and hopefully I'll have an idea by the time I get to him. Now, in terms of gameplay, I think the Venom Cannon is always a strong choice, but also I think this gun just has the best silhouette out of all the guns in the options. So I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to try and get him to hug the gun as close to his chest as possible and glue it in place. This will require just a little bit of snipping and filing just to flatten out those areas.
And now I want to talk about our sponsor, I Built It Terrain. Have you ever wanted to create a lovely Teutonic or medieval village for your roleplay scenario? Well, now you can. The talented people at I Built It Terrain have created an incredibly modular and versatile system to create your ultimate medieval town. Build them up on their magnetic terrain tiles and then reconfigure them as you like on the fly. They have a very clever little slot system which lets you remove balconies, floors, doors, windows, walls, everything you might like. These terrain tiles are also double-sided. Imagine you have grass on one side and water on the other. This immediately gives you so much variation for your world building. Now you have the option between pre-painted and pre-weathered. This is amazing and is just such a welcome addition to our role-playing worlds. These kits are designed to go together without the use of glue and have some very clever technical functionality in them. This is in addition to all the openable and removable doors, windows, and portcullises. And then once you've gotten together the structure for your town, you can populate it using all the wonderful props that they also provide. Create marketplaces, bazaars, carts, crates, barrels, and more. These 3D printable assets are available on their Kickstarter, and I highly recommend you check out the link in the description if you are interested in finding out more. And now, back to my own very highly customized Tyranids.
Now, for Operation Big Mouth Tyranid, I decided after having a little flick through the codex once more that I really liked the aesthetic and open mouth of the Tyranid Morlock. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to try and recreate that with this Tyranid. Now, I decided to assemble most of the model first so I can get the silhouette and the pose right, and then he can be shrieking or preparing to devour an enemy. And it would also be a lot easier to sculpt with something larger to hold like the base. And yet another Gaunt gives up his biomass for the greater good, or the greater hive mind. I'm using his face. And an extra set of jaws and some distended mandibles, and he's beautiful. Now I just need to add some green stuff into the cavity and stretch it out to form those fleshy bindings. I think my green stuff game is slowly improving, however I am still very prone to overwetting the surface area I'm trying to attach it to and just tearing away what I'm working on. But progress makes perfect. Now, I had just gotten back around to working on the fellow with the giant gun that he had fused to, and I had a little chat with Dave, and he suggested making it actually coming out of his abdomen, just projecting straight out of his gullet. And this was quite different to what I had envisioned, but the more I thought about it, the more I considered that that might actually be cooler. If I originally thought that he could be fused with his gun, why wouldn't he just be fused from the beginning? Why couldn't this gun have just grown inside him and then just emerge in some horrific manner? So I'm going to tear him apart, and I'm going to make this adjustment. But one idea idea leads to another, and I have had inspiration for my final Tyranid warrior. Now, the models are laid out so they have 2 overarching melee arms and then a little set of arms for the gun slung underneath. It always looks like this, and it always covers up the chest. So I had a thought, what if I change it so the gun arms are all on one side of him and all his melee arms are on the other? This will lead to a very dynamic pose and something very different, I think. Now it was time to drill the barrels, and just as an added flair, I decided to use a hobby knife afterwards and just cut out some hideous gouges, forming these weird flanges of flesh that are utterly horrific and hopefully will look really cool painted. Now, the trick for this individual was that I wanted both arms on one side to be extending out and converging onto a singular gun. So this was going to require some fairly tricky bending and snipping and general mayhem in order to get everything to align. I tried my best to be neat with it, but in the end there was just a little bit of a gap between a couple of the limbs, so I'll just fill it up with green stuff. And hopefully it won't look too out of place. For our warrior with the belly gun, this of course now frees up 2 of his hands, so I need to work out what he can be doing with those. Now, after a little look at the sprue, I've decided to use the left hand that holds the, I guess, ammunition sack for the barb strangler. So I'm going to incorporate this, and it's going to extend up through that weird pipe into another sack that's going to be hanging from his gullet. So it's almost like his innards have just sort of spilled out through gaps in his cavity, and he's going to have one of the rending claw hands, I think, cupped around it. So he's kind of juggling his own gizzards. Oh, I love and hate this at the same time. Ugh. And now, continuing the trend of distended jaws, this one's lower jaw is going to be so far down, it's going to be wrapped around the base of this cannon and just gripping onto the bottom. Then I roll up a ball of green stuff, put it inside this rending claw that I've now reposed slightly, and I'm just going to try and mold this up against the rib cage. And I drop it. Nice. When it comes to the bases, I of course have to continue this trend of these weird Tyranid organisms and biomass devourers springing out of the cracked earth as we try and terraform this planet. I'm going to use some parts from the sprue itself, and this death spitter gun will make a fantastic little fume vent. A little guardsman hand clawing out from underneath some crushing rubble, and these flesh hooks make some really cool and interesting spires. And as a final touch, I'm going to grab the little tail segment for the Tyranid Prime and just stick that onto the end of the green stuff worm I made. I think that looks really, really cool. Alright, we're on to the final stage of the modelling. So to complement the giant gun coming out of this guy, I'm going to go for the scything claws, and I'm just going to go for this really wide silhouette as he rears up to fire his cannon. Now you might be wondering why I didn't do anything to the jaw on this Tyranid, and that's because I think it's important to have a baseline. Having this one remain normal, I guess, will make the others seem even more impressive in comparison. And once again, I'm going for the impressive silhouette, so I'm going to have the whip hand in the upper socket and then the sword below it. Each of these is starting to shape out really nicely, and I'm honestly struggling to find a favourite amongst them. While in my original concept, this particular individual with the mouth wasn't the one I was going to give all the melee weapons to, in the end, I think this worked out really well. He looks perfect with them. And now it's time for just a little bit of PVA glue and adding in the basing mix I used for the other Tyranids. And then our little conversion is complete.
Alright, we have our Tyranid warrior unit, and it is looking mighty fine, I think. So it's time to paint. But this is only half a kill team. So, in my own time, I have, assembled all these little hormagaunts. And I've done these in the exact same way as I did in the diorama video. So, now we have a full kill team. Now it's time to paint them.
Now, when I was priming and undercoating my Tyranid warriors, I feel that either the wind was too much and it blew the particles everywhere, or I was just a bit overly zealous with some of the colours, and I lost a lot of the reds, so I'm just going to bring some of that back into the undertones, and it's going to give it a really nice pop in the shadows. As always, I want my tuners to be really glossy and glistening, so I'm going to aim for really strong spot highlights and ramp up these highlights as quickly as possible. To achieve a natural color of the skin, I'm actually adding some verdigris for the blue color and also some more human toned skin. This will give it a little bit of warmth and just that natural feel. Now, while these are called bone sabers, I decided not to paint them the same color as the teeth and claws. I'm going to paint them the same way as the carapace. I think this will make a really cool transition down the blade, but also show off any blood I decide to speckle on later. Some of these very scratchy transitions are half really intentional and laboriously blended, and the rest are actually honestly just happy accidents that just came across really nicely. And if I'm completely honest, sometimes it's really annoying how an accident can sometimes look better than something I've tried to meticulously blend. But I guess that's just the nature of how things work sometimes. Now, of course, as I start painting larger and larger Tyranids, I'm going to have more and more room on the carapace to do fun little freehand patterns. This is my first opportunity to try and get some of those large circular butterfly patterns onto the carapace, which I just couldn't quite fit in properly onto the Hormigaunt, so I'm really enjoying this change here. Any area of the carapace is just feeling a little empty or left out. I'm just going to add some more orange to the points here, just to spice things up a little bit.
Time to check in, Murray. How's it going?
I'm prepping for PAX Oz.
Interesting. Okay, Jen, what are you working on?
I'm painting for PAX Oz.
Okay, great. Dave, what's that?
I'm planning for PAX Oz.
PAX Oz. That's what I forgot. I'm going to PAX Oz. I'm going to go prepare.
Winter the 7th and 8th of October.
Okay, now that all this groundwork has been laid out with all the colors, now we can really start pushing some contrast and some strong highlights. This is really going to help attain that glossy feel that I'm looking for. As of course, skin is actually really glossy, so you need that nature to properly convey the material. And when it's opposed to something hard and flat like carapace, you should get a really, really good contrast. Retaining a lot of the nice colours mottled onto the bases, I'm just going to give these a nice little go over with the dry brush and then add on the snow mix, which I accidentally came across while doing the Hormigaunt diorama. It still looks fantastic on that, and I think that's the vibe I'm going to go for. Lots of melted snow as the Tyranids have started to terraform the entire planet underneath them. Now, we could call them done, but I'm going to take this just a little bit further, and I wanted to create some disgusting drool. Going to get the nice acid green happening and just have it dribbling out of the different orifices. Lovely. I was hoping that some of this glue would drip just a little bit, but it decided to adhere and stick very much, almost like it was glue. But everywhere else I tried to put it, it ran everywhere, so it seems a little temperamental. Now, at tabletop time, we are very familiar with the little tendrils of glue that drip from the hot glue gun, and I think these will be perfect little lattice frames to hang blood from between the different claws and maybe even from the mouths. So I'm going to prepare just some really small little strands of that and just pin them in place with either blood for the blood god on his swords or with the green drool that I've prepared for the mouths. We delicately attach the drool. There, lovely. These look incredible. I am so happy that I decided to keep going with the special effects. It has really made this piece, and I am also really proud of how I've managed to sculpt these conversions. I'm slowly becoming better and better at green stuff. I'm still not the best, but I'm pretty happy with how some of these turned out. And a huge thank you to all our patrons. It is you that help our imagination run wild and do projects just like this.
Haha! Tyranids! This started out as just a little diorama, and suddenly it's become a full kill team. I'm not sure how that happened in the time, but this is really cool. This has really crept up on me, and hopefully this will creep up on Dave and Jazza as well as we fight in a upcoming kill team battle report. Now there's one battle report to film in between getting to see these guys in action, so please bear with us. But I'm so stoked with how these have come up. Let me know if you have any cool thoughts for more Tyranid Warriors. I think I'll have to add some more as I expand the collection. I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you to our patrons and our sponsor. Until next time, I'm gonna have to think about more Tyranids to paint. Oh.